So let us start with the introduction to chemical safety. We all know that chemicals are all around us, in the food that we eat, or in the clothes we wear, the vehicles that we drive, or even the products that we use every day. Or we can say that the air that we breathe has certain amount of chemical in it. So looking into all this, we can assume that chemicals can help us to live better lives. But we should also understand and respect their potential hazards. There are some chemicals which are very dangerous. So we take care when handling such chemicals. Otherwise, they can harm us. It is estimated that more than 30 million workers are potentially exposed to one or more chemical hazards when working in industries. And according to the survey, there are nearly about 650,000 existing hazardous chemical products, and and every now and then a few new hundreds are added, introduced annually to the already growing list. And if proper care is not taken, this can pose a very potential serious problem for the workers who are exposed to this and even their employers. So how we define a chemical, actually what a chemical is. Chemical is defined as any element or a chemical compound or a mixture of these two, that is elements or compounds. And coming to the definition of safety, we have discussed in the earlier modules itself. Safety is defined as being secure from undergoing or causing hurt, injury, or loss. Hazard, there's a difference between safety and hazard. A hazard means a condition which poses potential risk to safety or health. Hazard means there are chances that even though you are doing things in a safe way, still there are chances that there is a risk to health, to the safety or health. So that is the meaning of hazard. When we say safety means we are secure that if we are working in this particular condition, it won't cause us any injury or any loss. Hazard means even though we are taking all the precautions uh, to prevent any injuries, there are chances that there's a potential risk that injury may take place. So there's a major difference between safety and a hazard. Now coming definition of chemical safety, we already seen the definition of chemical and safety. So chemical safety says that we are being secure, our workers are secure from undergoing any or causing any hurt, injury, or loss when working with elements or working with chemicals or even working with chemicals and as compounds elements. And chemical hazards, even though all the safety precautions are being taken, all the safety precautions are being followed, there are chances or there is a potential risk to safety or health. So this is the definition of chemical safety and chemical hazards. Now the chemicals that the workers or the chemicals that we handle, and if not proper precautions are not taken, it may adversely affect the health of the person if the chemicals finds a way into the body. And this can happen either through, that means there are different means by which chemical can enter the body, and it can happen either through respiratory system. When we inhale, it may get into respiratory system, or the chemicals and the skin may absorb those chemicals, or during indigestion. So these are three ways in which chemical can enter our body system and cause harm. Coming to the next topic, labeling of chemicals. Now, whenever chemicals are labeled, they are labeled based on the classification. Means determining means how hazardous they are. Based on that, chemicals are labeled. So here, and as depending upon the hazard category to which the chemicals belong, and they are assigned a codified phase for describing the type of hazard. Now, coming to labels, labels as defined by HCS is actually it defines HCS says that HCS means hazard common standard. So HCS says that whenever we are labeling, either it should be written, printed, or graphic information concerning that particular chemical should be affixed or printed on or attached to the container. way that chemical will be hazardous chemical will be placed, or even on the outside packaging. So HCS again, so whenever HCS says that the chemical manufacturer or the importers or the distributors of such chemical hazards before leaving the workplace should be labeled, tagged or marked. All means the same thing with the following information. So HCS says that whatever the container containing the chemical hazard should be labeled, and this label should have this following information, that is product identifier, signal word, hazard statement, precautionary statements, pictograms, and also it should have the name, address, and telephone number of the chemical manufacturer, importer, or other responsible party. So this is a must for any containers containing chemical hazards. So this is summarized what a label of a chemical container should contain. As already discussed, it should have the name, address, and telephone number of the manufacturer or the sender. There should be product identifier. There should be signal word. There should be hazard statement or statements, precautionary statements, and pictograms. So let us briefly go through each one of these. So first, the name, address, and telephone number of the chemical manufacturer, importer, or anyone who is responsible for the container. It should be properly mentioned in the label. Next is the product identifier. Here, this is how the hazardous chemical is identified by using the product identifier. Actually, this product identifier will be having the chemical name, but it should not be limited just to chemical name. It can either have a chemical code or a batch number. By just looking at the code number or the batch number, one can identify the what type of chemical is present inside the container and how hazardous it is. So that is what we call product identifier. Next, signal words. Now the signal words, there are just two types of signal words that are used. Either it is danger or warning. So what the signal words indicate? It indicates the level of severity of the hazard, how dangerous this hazard is. So they are just two words that are used, that is danger and warning. So if the container has a label called as danger, it is used means it is the chemicals are very hazardous in nature. So a lot of precautions has to be taken while handling such chemical containers. And if it is written as warning, it means it is, even though it is changed, but it is less hazardous, it is less severe hazard. So these are the two ways, these are the two signals that are used to identify the amount of hazardness of the chemical or severity of the hazardness of the chemicals. Next, we have the hazard statements. Now this hazard statement describes the nature of the hazard, means what happens include if by accidentally it gets spilled, accidentally if the chemical inside the container gets spilled, what is the what effect it has. This hazard statement describes. For example, is given causes damage to kidney to prolonged or repeated exposure and absorbed through the skin. So that means if a worker comes in contact with such a chemical for a prolonged period of time, it may cause damage to his kidney or some effect it will have on his body. So that is what the hazard statement describes. Next, precautionary statements. Now, precautionary statement describes what are the measures that should be taken to minimize or prevent the effect resulting from exposure to hazardous chemicals or improper storage of during improper storage or handling. So precautionary statement says that if by accident, if the chemicals or get exposed, or if the workers get exposed to such chemicals, what are the precautionary statements or measures that has to be taken? So there are four types of precautionary statements that may be given. One is prevention. So in that case, how it can be minimized, the exposure can be minimized. Next precautionary statement will be related to response. Suppose if a worker gets in contact with the chemical because of accidental spillage or exposure, what is the response? Next, it says how to store and how to dispose. So these are the four precautionary statements that will be provided in the label. One is the prevention, one is the response, other is the storage method and the disposal method. So these all will be mentioned in the precautionary statements. So there's example here of precautionary statement is written: do not breathe dust, fume, gas, mist, vapor, spray. So here we can see that there's a slash after each word, so it can apply to any one of these. So it says just get medical advice or attention if you feel unwell, and they mention the dispose of content or container according with the local or regional, national, international regulations. So this is just an example of a precautionary statement. Next, there will be supplementary information. The purpose of the supplementary information is to provide additional instructions or information that may help the employer. It also lists any hazard not otherwise classified under this portion of the label. For example, is like if an employer decides to include additional information regarding the chemical that is above and beyond what the standard requires, it may list this information what in the supplementary information. So if there is anything else the manufacturer or supplier has to add regarding the chemicals present in the container, that can be done in the supplementary information. So these are the things that will be usually provided in the label. Next, the last is the pictograms. The purpose of pictograms are the main purpose of using these pictograms is to improve worker safety and health, and these pictograms are standards and are used worldwide. Here in the figure it shows these are some of the symbols that we already gone through in the previous modules. So figure shows a symbol for each pictogram and the written name. There's a pictogram. This is a pictogram of a hazard, and along with it, the hazard associated with each of the pictogram is given. That means the explanation for each pictogram is given. So these pictograms will be usually mentioned in the label, whether it's an exploding bomb or it's flammable or for oxidizing hazards, whether it's a gas cylinder, corrosion, what type of hazard it is. So this will all any one of the pictograms will be accompanied with the label. So these are the various things that will always be mentioned on the containers having chemical hazards. Coming to the next topic, labeling of chemicals. Now, whenever chemicals are labeled, they are labeled based on the classification. Means how hazardous they are. Based on that, chemicals are labeled. So here, and depending upon the hazard category to which the chemicals belong, and they are assigned a codified phase for describing the type of hazard. Now coming to labels. Labels as defined by HCS is actually it defines HCS says that HCS means hazard common standard. So HCS says that whenever we are labeling, either it should be written, printed, or graphic information concerning that particular chemical should be affixed or printed on or attached to the container where that hazardous chemical will be placed, or even on the outside packaging. So HCS again HCS says that the chemical manufacturer or the importers or the distributors of such chemical hazards before leaving the workplace should be labeled, tagged, or marked. All means the same thing with the following information. So HCS says that whatever the container containing the chemical hazard should be labeled, and this label should have this following information, that is product identifier, signal word, hazard statement, precautionary statements, pictograms, and also should have the name, address, and telephone number of the chemical manufacturer. Next topic, acid hoods. Now the main purpose of acid hood uh, is to make sure that whenever workers are working with acid, they are safeguarded. So acid heat usually consists of a flat work area. It's just these are some of the pics which shows acid hoods, and these are covered by transparent slash. And whatever the work area or the materials, they are meant fabricated such that they are resistant to damage from acid and other caustic chemicals. So usually the purpose using work acid hoods is that people can safely work with acids, even if there's a spillage, it won't cause much harm. uh, and acid roofs are usually an enclosed area, with of course all the sides enclosed with only they'll be opening in the front. And sometimes and acid roofs are usually equipped with an exhaust fan, so that in case of fumes, the exhaust fan sucks out the fumes and sends through the atmosphere after proper filtrage. Or sometimes after, instead of sending to atmosphere, after proper filtrage, it can be again resent to the room where this acid hoods are present. So this was regarding acid hoods. And the acid hood, you can see here the height of the acid hood is such that it is comfortable for the workers to work in a standing or in a sitting position. Next topic: handling of acids, eye washes, and showers. So first we'll see first of part, that is how the acids had to be handled. So these are the some of the precautions that has been mentioned. The first precaution of when handling acid is that uh, if the acids are very strong, they should be stored separately and away from volatile organic chemicals. Next point: whenever we are handling acids, we should wear PPE, that is a personal protective equipment, and it includes acid resistant chemical gloves, aprons, and also, if in case of an emergency, or if acid if if we come in contact with acid, then for that purpose there should be emergency flood showers or eye wash foundation must be available nearby. We'll discuss regarding the showers and the eye wash in the later slides. So whenever, if the acid has to be diluted, it should be stirred. Stirring should be done slowly into the water. If water is suddenly poured into the acid, it may result in a very quick chemical reaction, and a fourth or the boiling or fumes can be generated. Always use cold water when mixing with acid. And also, when using acid, we should make sure that suitable neutralizing agents are there in case event of spills. In case accidentally if the acid spills out, then there should be neutralizing agent, so which can be immediately applied to it to neutralize the effect. And the last point: acids should be neutralized with weak bases such as sodium carbonate or bicarbonate. So these are some of the precaution steps that should be followed when handling acids. Next topic: eye washers and showers. Of course, in today's industries, many safety precautions and different types of emergency equipments are used so that the employees' health and can be safeguarded. Although all the employees will try to follow all the regulations and standards and will be wearing PPE and they would have undergone safety trainings, still accident will happen. So when accident does happen, so for that, when handling acids, eye washes and safety showers for these reasons were developed in response to the increased use of hazardous chemicals. So both these eye wash and safety showers are emergency systems, and they are used in both public and private industry to protect an employee from injury in case of when they come in contact with hazardous chemicals or chemical compounds or even fire. So the main purpose of eye washes and showers, they are usually used in chemical industries. So this is just an uh, pic showing eye washer and a safety shower. So you can see here eye washer. So water coming from both the ends directly into the eye, and this is a shower. We'll be discussing regard this in the in detail in the next coming slides. And these are the two symbols that I used for eye wash. This is the first one indicates eye wash, and this is where safe to shower. These are the two symbols. So there's example here of precautionary statement. It's written: do not breathe dust, fume, gas, mist, vapor, spray. So here we can see that there's a slash after each word, so it can apply to any one of these. So it says just get medical advice or attention if you feel unwell, and they mentioned the dispose of content or container according with the local or regional, national, international regulations. So this is just an example of a precautionary statement. Next, there will be supplementary information. The purpose of the supplementary information is to provide additional instructions or information that may help the employer. It also lists any hazard not otherwise classified under this portion of the label. For example, is like if an employer decides to include additional information regarding the chemical that is above and beyond what the standard requires, it may list this information what in the supplementary information. So if there is anything else the manufacturer or supplier has to add regarding the chemicals present in the container, that can be done in the supplementary information. So these are the things that will be usually provided in the label. And there are four basic ways these safety showers used include. So first is the dilution, and as can be seen the pic, uh, this dilution means it will just dilute the chemicals that are on the skin to a non-harmful level. It will just reduce the concentration of the chemicals. Next type it is warming or cooling. So warming or cooling means it will whenever a worker comes under this, either his body gets warmed or cooled because of a change in temperature due to chemical exposure. Next, irrigation. Irrigation means here the more amount of water will be there, so this flushes the chemicals out of the skin. And the last is the extinguishment. So accidentally if a worker catches fire, his cloth catches fire, so this is the purpose of extinguishment, putting out fires of clothing on the body. So any one of this type of safety showers can be used based on the type of chemical that are being used in the industry. Now there are certain specifications of safety showers that has to be followed. Whatever the emergency safety shower is there, it should be located within 10 seconds walking time from the location the body contamination occurs. So it should be easily accessible. There should be no blockage to the path of the shower, and the shower must be located on the same floor as the area containing the potential hazard. And the water source that is used in the that is used for the shower purpose must be potable. Potable means it should be fit enough to drink. And the temperature of the water they have given, it should be maintained between 60 degree Fahrenheit and 100 degree Fahrenheit. And the water should be able to flow rate at least 20 gallons, means about 75.7 liters of water. The flow rate should be for at least 15 minutes. And the shower should be able to be turned on in maximum of 1 second and remain on until the user turns it off. The height of the tower dimension, the height of the shower water column should be between 82 inches and 96 inches, and also the diameter of the water column or that should be at least 20 inches at 60 inches above the floor. And they also mentioned the enclosure or the size of the shower should be at least 34 inches in diameter. So these are some of the standard specifications of the safety showers. It is estimated that more than 30 million workers are potentially exposed to one or more chemical hazards when working in industries. And according to the survey, there are nearly about 6,50,000 existing hazardous chemical products, and every now and then a few new hundreds are added, introduced annually to the already growing list. And if proper care is not taken, this can pose a very potential serious problem for the workers who are exposed to this and even their employers. So how we define a chemical, actually what a chemical is. Chemical is defined as any element or a chemical compound or a mixture of these two, that is elements or compounds. And coming to the definition of safety, we have discussed in the earlier modules itself. Safety is defined as being secure from undergoing or causing hurt, injury, or loss. Hazard, there's a difference between safety and hazard. A hazard means a condition which poses potential risk to safety or health. Hazard means there are chances that even though you are doing things in a safe way, still there are chances that there is a risk to health, to the safety or health. So that is the meaning of hazard. When we say safety means we are secure that if we are working in this particular condition, it won't cause us any injury or any loss. Hazard. So this is just an uh, pic showing eye washer and a safety shower. So you can see here eye washer. So water coming from both the ends directly into the eye, and this is a shower. We'll be discussing regard this in the in detail in the next coming slides. And these are the two symbols that I used for eye wash. This is the first one indicates eye wash, and this were safety shower. These are the two symbols. Coming to the next topic, labeling of chemicals. Now, whenever chemicals are labeled, they are labeled based on the classification. Means determining means how hazardous they are. Based on that, chemicals are labeled. So here, and as depending upon the hazard category to which the chemicals belong, and they are assigned a codified phase for describing the type of hazard. Now, coming to labels, labels as defined by HCS is actually it defines HCS says that HCS means hazard common standard. So HCS says that whenever we are labeling, either it should be written, printed, or graphic information concerning that particular chemical should be affixed or printed on or attached to the container where that chemical will be hazardous chemical will be placed, or even on the outside packaging. So the HCS again so in safety 2, the safety management is proactive. That means in proactive, here the management won't wait for the things to happen. They try to avoid things from happening, any accidents from happening. That means they try to anticipate developments and events in an uncertain future. So they try to think of things that are unthinkable, or they try to explore the things that have not been explored and discussed. And here they try to hear the voices of mind is heard. Means they take into all the data, they consider all the data, no matter how small or seeming irrelevant people concerned appear at that particular time. And here, safety efforts are made and maintained even when adverse events are absent. Even though things may not, accidents may not happen, but still, efforts will make sure that things they may never happen. So discussions they discuss about safety and risk are they just keep on discussing regarding the safety issues even when everything looks safe. So here, in order they try to in safety to the safety management, they try to create a environment under all conditions where the humans and machines can work under all conditions and all circumstances. That is regarding safety. So the remaining topics will cover in the next session. Thank you.